This is the Cholo News Report for Monday 25 February 2019. During a training exercise, a twin engine aircraft crashes through the roof of a home in Winter Haven, Florida, shortly after takeoff. The pilot was killed. A trainee pilot and 8 people in the house suffered minor injuries. The Federal Aviation Administration and National Transportation Safety Board will be investigating. U.S. President Donald Trump tells governors at the White House he would delay a scheduled increase in U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods, and that he is happy so long as North Korea continues its pause in weapons testing. The twin-engine aircraft fell into the house in Winter Haven, Florida, at around 1 p.m. while its pilot, James Wagner, 64, and his trainee, Timothy Sheehy, were practicing simulated engine failure training, Judd said. Firefighters, the first on the scene, arrived to find Sheehy wandering around the area. After walking out of the crash, Judd said. Bangladeshi special forces shoot and kill an armed man after he attempted to hijack a Biman Bangladesh Airlines flight heading to Dubai International Airport. All 148 passengers and crew members disembarked safely. The suspect, who reportedly warned he had a pistol, was killed when security forces stormed the plane after it made an emergency landing in Chittagong. Army officials said the man, believed to be aged 25, was initially wounded when shots were fired on Sunday but died shortly afterwards, AFP news agency reports. We tried to arrest him or get him to surrender but he refused and then we shot him, Majgen Moshe Roman told reporters. A federal judge rules that the exclusion of women from the selective service system is unconstitutional. Kate DeMono, a retired Marine who served for 20 years, said on Sunday that the ruling was a natural progression from the lifting of the ban on women in combat roles. A version of this article appears in print on page A13 of the New York edition with the headline, Judge rules that a military draft of only men is unconstitutional. Voters in Moldova go to the polls to elect the new members of parliament. Read more. Moldova will hold a parliamentary election on Sunday after a chaotic last few days of campaigning in the tiny ex-Soviet republic that has long been divided between pro-Russians and pro-Europeans. While many in the country of 3.5 million want to maintain close ties with Moscow, others seek to follow the example of Romania, with which Moldova shares a language and long history, and look west to the European Union. Dodon's pro-Moscow party is leading in recent opinion polls, advocating for Moldova to join Russia's Eurasian Economic Union over the EU. Voters in Senegal assemble to vote for the country's next president. After voting in the southwest city of Ziguinchor, Sonko pledged he would accept the outcome as long as the electoral process is credible and free of fraud. Saul, who represents the Alliance for the Republic Party, has mostly campaigned on the promise to implement a second phase of his socio-economic development program. He has been in power since 2012, and his initiatives include investment in infrastructure and a social grant system for the West African nation's poorest families. Voters in Cuba are asked whether they approve of a new constitution that recognizes private property, bans discrimination, creates a term limit for the president, and restores the position of prime minister. Cubans will decide on Sunday whether to accept or reject a draft new constitution that recognizes the free market, while still enshrining communism as the island's official political ideology.